Today, Trump pardons a turkey, but everyone else is still on his shit list. This is just another day. They say the holidays can be hard when you're hurting, and no one knows that better than Donald Trump. Normally this time of year, he'd be shopping for all his favorite kids, and also Eric, or meal prepping his famous Thanksgiving fries. But instead, he's stuck at the office, facing some of the darkest days of his second term. In just the past 2 weeks, Trump has failed to suppress his ties to a pedophile, lost a bid to vanquish his enemies, and mistook his own hemorrhoid cream for a tube of toothpaste. Talk about eating shit. So I'm sure that you can imagine the guy could really use some cheering up. And luckily, today, he had the perfect event carved into his calendar.
This was a big day. It's a pardon day for a very important beast.
I know what you're thinking, but no, he's not talking about Barron. It's Presidential Turkey Pardon Day, but before the president could get to this year's lucky bird, he had some loose ends from last year to tie up.
You remember last year, after a thorough and very rigorous investigation by Pam Bondi and all of the people at Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, the White House Counsel's Office, and the Department of Everything. We have a Department of Everything. You know what that is? I think that's called the White House. Into a terrible situation caused by a man named Sleepy Joe Biden. He used an auto pen last year for the turkey's pardon. So I have the official duty to determine, and I have determined that last year's turkey pardons are totally invalid.
That's right, Trump rescinded Biden's turkey pardon. Luckily, that same turkey also stormed the Capitol on January 6th, so he's still covered as far as pardons go. Still, kind of weird that Biden was catching strays at what should be an apolitical holiday event that had nothing to do with him, and Sleepy Joe wasn't the only one.
I have the official duty to determine, and I have determined that last year's turkey pardons are totally invalid, as are the pardons of about every other person that was pardoned other than, where's Hunter?
Is there any Biden Trump won't go after at a presidential turkey pardoning? Look at the neck waddle on that one. Maybe we should call her Jill. Oh, and these turkeys are farm-raised and drug-free, unlike a certain Ashley that we know. Trump started off in poor taste, and he just kept going, because apparently he is physically incapable to resist spewing his bizarre, inappropriate brain vomit, even on a day meant to celebrate gratitude.
But instead of pardons, some of my more enthusiastic staffers were already drafting the paperwork to ship Gobble and Waddle straight to the terrorist confinement center in El Salvador. And even those birds don't want to be there. You know what I mean? It was a tough. I'd like to thank the president of that country. They do a rather efficient job. It's got to be the largest prison in history. I've never seen anything like it.
Look, I know Trump is just joking, but the torture prison where he's shipping immigrants without due process is real. So in the spirit of today's good vibes, maybe don't remind people that we're a country that treats our turkeys better than our people. The truth is, Trump doesn't really want good vibes. He wants to complain about people who he thinks have wronged him, not unlike how he treats every other day. Like when he went after Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who pissed him off by declining the federal troops that Donald Trump tried to send him.
I had a little bit of a Pritzker joke. I was going to talk about Pritzker and size, but when I talk about Pritzker, I get angry because he's not letting us do the job. So I'm not going to tell my Pritzker joke. They have a very cute little joke, you know. Some speechwriter wrote some joke about his weight, but I would never want to talk about his weight. I don't talk about people being fat. I refuse to talk about the fact that he's a fat slob. I don't mention it.
And I refuse to talk about the fact that a man who looks like a dead body that's been at the bottom of a lake for 2 weeks really has no standing to call anyone else a fat slob. I refuse to mention it. But I do appreciate Trump's restraint, because I've heard Trump's comments on Pritzker in the past, so I know that it must have taken all of his willpower not to yet again flat out call the governor a big fat slob.
The governor is a big fat slob.
Ah, well, I guess the holidays are not a time for restraint. And restrain Trump did not, because the grievances just kept a-comin'.
The turkeys being pardoned today go by the names of Gobble and Waddle. When I first saw their pictures, I thought we should send them, I shouldn't say this. I was going to call them Chuck and Nancy. But then I realized I wouldn't be pardoning them. I would never pardon those two people. I wouldn't pardon them. I wouldn't care what Melania told me. Darling, I think it would be a nice thing to do. I won't do it, darling.
At some point, you gotta kind of feel bad for Nancy Pelosi. Is there any Republican who will pass up the chance to use her as a punching bag?
And tonight I have the high privilege and distinct honor of my own as the first president to begin the State of the Union message with these words: Madam Speaker.
Wow, I've gotten so used to the president being awful to his political rivals, I almost forgot there was a time when the president wasn't. I guess Trump is kind of like global warming. A decade ago, we were all panicked about keeping the world from getting 2 degrees hotter. These days, I'm so used to burning to death slowly, I don't even use my stove. I just cook my eggs on the hood of my car. This whole turkey pardoning spectacle was just further evidence that for Trump, no event is sacred and no subject is off limits. And no one knows that better than Nancy Pelosi, who has been stuck in his craw since long before his re-election. Just listen to him on the campaign trail back in 2023.
And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know?
In case you don't remember, Pelosi's husband was not doing well because a deranged Trump supporter had just broken into his house and beat him with a hammer. But Trump was just joking, and you know what they say, sticks and stones will break your bones, but a hammer can leave you with a skull fracture that requires several surgeries. The truth is, Trump's performance at today's turkey pardoning shouldn't surprise any of us. We all know by now that any time he steps in front of a mic, it's just another chance to air his petty grievances. And nothing can stop him, not even a man dressed in a bunny suit.
Enrollment in the military is at a record, and enrollment in the police force, fire forces, and all of the different law enforcement groups, we're setting records. And 6 months ago, we couldn't get anybody. And now we're setting records.
That was at this year's Easter egg roll, and I'm sure all those 5-year-olds who showed up for candy were just dying to know how much higher military enrollment is under Trump than it was under Biden, particularly whether we're talking active duty and reserve numbers as they pertain to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, and Coast Guard individually, or are we lumping them all together into one aggregate figure that doesn't account for the nuanced differences in recruitment cycles, retention rates, re-enlistment bonuses, deployment schedules, geographic distribution of recruitment stations? Like, are we considering demographic changes in the eligible recruitment pool, changes in educational requirements, modifications to physical fitness standards, variations in signing bonuses across different military occupational specialties, the impact of economic conditions on civilian job market alternatives? Because what about those shifts in public perception of military service following various geopolitical events, alterations to GI Bill benefits, adjustments to housing allowances and family support programs, the influence of social media campaigns, changes in age waivers and medical waivers? Because the kids are definitely going to want to know that. In fact, sometimes Trump doesn't even leave the White House to use a holiday for grievance airing. Sometimes he just does it right from the Lincoln bathroom toilet, like he did this year on Juneteenth.
Notably, of course, the president did not sign a proclamation this year observing the holiday. Instead, he took to social media posting, "Too many non-working holidays in America. It's costing our country billions of dollars to keep all of these businesses closed."
I'm pretty sure the people celebrating Juneteenth are not the reason that American businesses are losing billions of dollars. In fact, for quite some time, they're why American businesses were able to run virtually for free. Look, we all know what to expect from Donald Trump. That doesn't mean that we can't be disgusted. Thanksgiving is supposed to be about gratitude, but somehow it turns into yet another bitch fest where he presents himself as the victim. Himself, the guy who escaped 2 impeachments, who dodged 4 indictments, evaded 34 felony charges, who has every single branch of government bending to his will. And watching him take what should be a moment to celebrate all you have and turn it into a chance to whine about the few things he's missing is the perfect encapsulation of his presidency. Remember, Trump ran as a populist. He promised to look out for the common man. But instead of lowering costs or fixing healthcare or even holding Jeffrey Epstein's accomplices accountable, he's used his power to help himself, whether that's using his platform to enrich himself or air his grievances. John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Whereas Trump said, "Gimme." Call him what you will, a terrible president, a corrupt, self-serving despot, or maybe even just
a big fat slob.
Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.